Eternity Delphi Council Debriefings, where the storm has a name. We are your hosts, Jay and Leamon, and today we will continue working on the Vitality Paths from the Pan-Pacifica sourcebook. Before we get to that, though, we have an email from T, and like T, you can email us at torgdcd@gmail.com, and we will read your emails like this and answer questions to the best of our abilities, which sometimes isn't very good because there's no good answers, but we will try. And this is going to be one of those that kind of doesn't. We don't have a lot of information. So this says, "Hi guys, just a quick question. The God Box mentions the Serpentors having trained Rassitars, but I can't find them anywhere in the book or the Living Land book. Any help? Many thanks, T." So T, I looked, and Rassitars are mentioned twice in the God Box. Yes, they are mentioned as being trained by Serpentors, and they even have a page number reference. But when you look at that page number with the threats, it just talks about the Serpentors and not the Rassitars. And although the God Box was before my time doing anything official, with Torg Eternity, having seen similar things happen, I am quite positive what happened is the Rassitars were cut for an unknown reason, and all the mentions of them accidentally were not removed. So they were removed from the threats and probably the Serpentor stat block, but in the main part of the adventure they were not. And those two instances where the name Rassitar was written was not corrected. I have no idea what a Rassitar was supposed to be. I think maybe a snake-like creature. If you really wanted them to have trained Rassitars, I would look at some very easy threat like a lurk or a shock trooper or something like that and use those base stats where one wound would knock them out of the fight and just give them a few shock or so. Jay, before we started recording, talked about his own little occurrence with this type of thing. So if you wanted to talk
Yeah.
about that, Jay.
I should mention, and there's no reference to Rassitars in the classic Torg Land Below or Living Land books either. So this might have been something that they just made up for this. So you could feel free to do whatever.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I had a similar situation because I was doing playtesting for Isle. And at the time, there was a threat in there called mains, which were just kind of like your traditional lizard men wearing chainmail and using battle axes and stuff. And eventually, for whatever reason, they got cut. But I had been working on an Infiniverse adventure, a long, like, big 3-act adventure called Caldera, and trying to do like high production values and all this stuff. But I had made an entire act about a bunch of Storm Knights that got kidnapped by mains, and you had to go rescue them, and it would help you, lead you to the next bit. So suddenly I was like, I had these things ready to go, and then, yeah, truthfully, I was dawdling on this for a long time, but eventually, especially because I had to rewrite a lot of Liverpool. But anyway, they no longer existed, and I was like pretty much ready to put this thing out, but now suddenly one of the main villains is gone. So I emailed Greg Gordon and was like, hey, is it okay if I just use them anyway? Like, so they never actually got released, but they're still just a monster, right?
Mm-hmm.
And he was like, yeah, it's cool. So I eventually used them and everything was fine. But yeah, sometimes things just get cut at the last minute even,
Mm-hmm.
and you can think you're ready for something, and then suddenly you go like, I've been playing this book for months, and then it gets published, and you want to do something and you look in it and it's not even there. Yeah, so it can totally blindside you sometimes.
Yes, it's happened quite often, a lot more often than I would like. Really trying to uh, make sure with year two that this doesn't happen as much. I would like to promise that it won't, but we are all our own worst editors, and things slip by and stuff like that. But with the archetypes usually have some type of
Oh yeah.
spell, miracle, or psionic or perk that existed at some point in the writing. The archetype was written, and then that ability taken out, and then the archetype not updated, because those were kind of easy to overlook when you're scrambling for release and trying to shore everything up. So sadly, it's not a great answer, but it is the answer. The Rassatars were probably cut for some reason. If you wish to put them in there, I personally would just have a very low level threat um, in there to take their place. So that answers that question, and thank you very much, T, for the email. So now we will get back into the Vitality Paths with Path of the Gun, which Jay certifies as good through
Yeah.
his playing or game mastering with players, but we'll get through this. The Path of the Gun requires at least 2 adds in fire combat and 1 add in unarmed combat. The path skill is fire combat, so as you raise fire combat, then your various path techniques will increase. So you'll start off with the first 2 automatically before you add anything, and then as you raise your fire combat, you will get more techniques open. And this is basically the Pan-Pacifica gun fu type path. So if you're have
Not to be confused with the perk gun fu, which we'll get to.
yes, yes. So the path of the gun and the perk gun fu are for those players who wish to have characters that use martial artists and pistols at the same or close to the same time. Um, so that's why it requires both fire combat and unarmed combat. So we'll jump into the techniques. So the first technique is called Guns Akimbo. When using the 2 weapons attack option with 2 pistols, spend 1 shock to reduce the multi-targeting penalty by 2. So what are your thoughts on Guns Akimbo?
That's really good. Only 1 shock, so pretty low. And it's a bit it hits spending shock hits a bit different when you're a ranged character
Mm-hmm.
versus being in the thick of things, so you can kind of get away with it. And I should mention to everyone, this is essentially the John Wick
Yes.
path, right? If you want to be doing that kind of stuff, this is the one that you take.
Yes.
And it's like a fifth or an eighth, depending on how you look at it, of a perk, and that is almost a perk's worth of benefit right there, because normally whirlwind
Mm-hmm.
is just for melee attacks. It doesn't cost any shock, but it's just for melee, whereas this is just for ranged with pistols specifically. um, but it costs shock, but it's very good.
Yes. You do have to have the 2 pistols in your hands. So that would, for me, be the only somewhat downside, is you would have to be wielding the 2 pistols. But let's move down to tap twice. Tap twice is the technique based off of double tap, and it is spend 1 shock to fire 2 shots T for a +1 to fire combat or energy weapons. If the hero has double tap, he may spend 1 shock to increase the bonus to +2. So basically, if you don't have double tap, you spend a shock, you get a +1 bonus. And if you do have double tap, then you can spend that same one shock and get a +2 bonus, one for the double tap and one for tap twice. So what are your thoughts on tap twice?
This one, not so much.
Mm-hmm.
It's not as good. It can be, but it's not really. Um, Double tap is well known to be one of the worst perks out there. However, a lot of people, if they are playing gun related characters, still take it because it leads to kill shot,
Right.
which is a ridiculous perk. So, um, spending a shock to get the effect of double tap is just bad. Now, a +2, on the other hand, can be okay. And this doesn't it is a funny situation because it doesn't specify pistols,
Mm-hmm.
but the path is supposed to be about pistols, so I would presume you would probably still require it to be pistols, but it doesn't have to be double shooting pistols. It could be just single firing, which does bring up a question about stacking, which I never even thought of, so I was maybe letting people get away with things too much. But normally, if you're shooting with two pistols, you get a bonus as it is, right? It counts as short burst, I believe, right?
Yes, two weapons. Two weapons
Increases
increases
the
the melee weapon's defense with two ranged weapons, such as two pistols, increases the number of bullets she might fire in one round for the purpose of multi-targeting. And if ammo allows, it also increases the rapid fire capability one step when firing both. So
right.
two automatic pistols, for example, will do short burst, and the short burst, if I go back up to the rapid
Which is
fire,
where this all
is a
leads to
+2
eventually.
damage. Yes.
Yeah. So short burst gives +2 to hit, but I just lost the
The tap
double
twice.
tap gives +1. So do those stack is the question. And I had been letting them stack, but I don't think they're supposed to. I'm not sure.
I would say, okay, we just got one and we just got two. So this one allowing for the only the one pistol to
Yeah.
work, I would say at this point in time they wouldn't stack, but later when things start specifying that they do, then I would. If we go
Yeah.
just straight
So
by
that does make
bonus.
it slightly better because if double tap like or makes it worse, I guess. Like if
Yeah.
double tap doesn't stack, if you're already dual pistoling because
Mm-hmm.
that's what you've built your character to do, then this is pretty much a pointless technique. But you're going to take it anyway because it leads to the rest of them. But if you are ever in a situation where you only have one pistol,
Mm-hmm.
then it lets you get that bonus.
Right.
And +1 is basically nothing
Mm-hmm.
in Torg Eternity, but +2 can be good. So if getting spending a shot, if you already have double tap, spending a shock to get +2 can come in handy. It's not like awesome, but it can be handy.
Yes, I kind of consider this the same way that most people, as you said, consider double tap to begin with, is known as a quote unquote weak perk.
Mm-hmm.
But when it starts being used with other stuff, then it can be good. Plus, you at least get it for free. So even if you don't want double tap and you don't spend the XP for that perk, you get tap twice for free. If you have one pistol, you can spend a shock. You can use it
Yeah.
or two and get the bonus to two without using as much ammo, I guess. Um, it'll still be the extra because you fire two shots, but it's not quite powerful. But it's technique number two, and it leads to better things. So the technique three is fast reload, which is reload up to two firearms per turn as a simple action, or spend 1 shock to reload as a free action when not firing a weapon. So basically, you can normally it takes a simple action to reload one. This allows you to reload both. Um, or if you're, say, just kicking or something, doing something else and not firing the weapon, then you can do a free action, which you can still then do simple actions or whatever, and you can reload those firearms. So, what are your thoughts on fast reload?
This one is surprisingly good, actually. Like you don't think about it. It depends on if your GM's tracking ammo, I
Mm-hmm.
guess is the big thing. But if you are using weapons that burst fire and you're using both at the same time and you're also double tapping, which as I mentioned, you probably shouldn't, but I was letting them do, they would be running out of ammo really quick.
Mm-hmm.
And so just being able to reload quickly came in very helpful, actually. So I should mention that I have one of my players has run a Path of the Gun character twice, so I've seen it a lot.
Mm-hmm. Yes, this one also, when I first read it, and I look and see, okay, you can do a normal reload for a simple action. I'm like, huh. But you're using two firearms, as you said, with double tap, tap twice, and future things down this list.
Yeah.
That you can be running out of ammo and pistols rather quickly, and this allows you to reload. Plus, it is not just a fighting with pistols. You can still use kicks and knees and elbows, and like you said, it's the John Wick path.
Yeah.
Um, so you can do you can still attack and do something with the fast reload. You're just not shooting if you are doing it as the free action. So we'll move on to 4, quick trigger. So if you spend 2 shock before making a fire combat attack, you can upgrade your rapid fire by 1 level up to a long burst, including attack using 2 weapons. So as we stated, the 2 weapons, you could get that short burst. With this, then you could spend 2 shock and get that increased to a long burst. So what are your thoughts on quick trigger?
So pretty much every shot was made with 3 shock being spent to do this and and 2 guns akimbo. So they were just yeah. It's very good. It's the combo and it's what makes this path really. It's the core of it. But you do like hemorrhage ammo, which is why the reload comes in handy.
Right. So the quick trigger with your guns akimbo keep you shooting and your or get you the good damage raising that you want, and then the fast reload keeps the ammo coming.
Mhm.
As long as you have a way to mitigate shock, you're golden.
Yeah.
So then we will move on to the 5th technique, bullet ballet. While armed with a pistol in each hand in melee combat, the hero may spend 1 shock to substitute fire combat for unarmed combat and is considered to have 2 melee weapons for purpose of 2-weapon defense. See Torg Eternity. So as I said, with the 2-weapon defense, you get the +2 to your melee weapon defense, and this basically allows you to, instead of using unarmed combat for those knees and elbows that you might be using for your fast reload, you get to use your fire combat, which if you're on this path, the path skill is fire combat. So if you're getting the perk mastery for any reason, you would probably put it into fire combat. So at some point, you only need that one ad in unarmed combat, and this would allow you to substitute up to 8 ads for those times. So, what are your thoughts on Bullet Ballet?
Yeah, the one ad tax for this perk tree is pretty much just a freebie. Like it's 1 XP to
Yeah, right.
have one ad in unarmed combat, and there's no real need to take it. after that, because if you want to make a balanced fighter, you can and have that, but because you will have a high dex,
Mm-hmm.
but oftentimes people want to focus on one thing, so they're going to be maxing out that fire combat as quick as possible, and then for the price of a shock, then yeah, being able to use it as defense is the main thing. But you could also make an attack, but the question is, why would you? Because you have the guns, so you would just be shooting. Now, normally, if you're in close combat uh, and you're using small weapons like pistols or carbines, then you actually do use unarmed combat to shoot with, I believe. No, or is
No,
it you shoot
it's
against their, you don't shoot against their dodge, you shoot
right.
against their unarmed combat. That's what it
Correct.
is. Okay. So you would still be using your fire combat that way. But what this does is it lets you use it for defense, which might not be as good because you haven't been putting that up, and gives you the bonus to defense for having two melee weapons.
Right. So it kind of all goes together. Again, this kind of builds each thing kind of puts
Mm-hmm.
another link in a really nice chain. So if we move on to 6 double strike, this is a spend 4 shock to apply damage to a single opponent with both an unarmed combat and firearm combat attack. With the Gun Fu perk, which we will go back to, the hero reduces the cost to activate Gun Fu to 2 shock. So if we go back to the prowess perks in um, the Pan-Pacifica book, let's make sure I can get there. It's Gun Fu requires 3 adds in fire combat and unarmed combat. So you'll need to get your unarmed combat if you do up a couple of points for the Gung Fu. And it says when the hero's sole action is to attack a single target in close combat with an unarmed combat and fire combat attack, if he hits with both attacks, he may spend 3 shock to apply the damage from each attack separately instead of only applying the highest damage. So in Torg Eternity, normally if you attack the same person with multiple times, only the highest damage uh, is inflicted upon them. This allows each one to be handled separately. So you do a fire combat at somebody, you figure out the results, then you do that with the unarmed combat, or vice versa. And it's a way to basically damage the same person twice if that's your single action for your turn. So then when we go back down to the double strike, and that was a spend, was it 3? This one is a spend 4 and apply damage to a single opponent with both an unarmed combat and firearm combat. So you're spending one more point, but you don't have to buy the perk because it's automatically given to you when you get your path up to 6 through the fire combat ads. With the Gun Fu perk, then it's reduced to 2. So basically, with this, if you have this and Gung Fu, you spend 2 shock and you get both an unarmed combat and a fire combat attack against an opponent. Both will do damage, and you could mix it with bullet ballet and spend that shock and have the unarmed combat use your fire
Mm-hmm.
combat adds as well. So this is a way to have the offensive of both of them. So what are your thoughts on double strike?
It's a it's a weird one because it can be really good, but it can also, it depends on if you have really focused your character to have unarmed combat or not, um, and what kind of weapon you're using, because it lets you do both an unarmed and a weapon attack. So the thing is, if you don't have a good strength or are cheesing it with the brass knuckles or something, right? Then you're probably not going to be doing all that much damage necessarily with that versus the gun. However, if you have a high enough fire combat, and as you mentioned, you can spend shock to use your fire combat for both of them. Then, and it's not really a multi-action, so you don't take a negative. It's the only thing you do, so it's really one action. So if you get a high enough hit and you're rolling a bunch of bonus dice, what you're really doing is just hoping that one of the two hits infinity symbols and penetrates up, which can be good, but it does start to cost a lot of shock if you're
Yes.
starting to do this. However, if you do actually have Gun Fu, then it costs only 2 shocks. So at that point, it becomes a little bit more reasonable. And if you've actually taken Gun Fu, then you probably actually do have a decent strength and a higher unarmed combat. So you might not even need to use Bullet Ballet. So if you've actually taken Gun Fu, then this makes Gun Fu way cheaper and is really good. If you haven't, it's just kind of like, well, maybe I might roll like 2 ones on my gun attack and end up doing almost nothing, but then I might penetrate on the unarmed attack. So it gives you kind of 2 shots at it.
Yes. So again, I think the double strike is good in those situations where the player has made a character that can do some unarmed combat, which if I was that's how I would build the character if I was doing Path of the Gun. I would be looking in the future and would not be having strength be a low attribute. I would be looking as somebody who is using pistols or such in melee combat. And then we move on to number 7, Deadeye, which you can spend 1 shock to roll damage twice for either tap twice or double tap and use the larger result. So even though those give the +1, the +2, etc., it's if you got any bonus dice while using those. You roll the damage twice, you take the larger result. If you have kill shot, which is basically the perk version of Deadeye, then it can be triggered by using the quick trigger technique, which we just talked about, which is upgrading the rapid fire. So, what do you think of Deadeye?
Ooh. Okay, admittedly, at this point, I think we didn't get this far, right? So, but I know this was kind of the thing that they really wanted to do. But okay, kill shot is already, it makes taking double tap worth it,
Right.
and this is basically getting it for free. But you're still limited to having to use double tap, so it's kind of eh. However, if you do have kill shot, which you probably do if you're doing this, then being able to be triggered by quick trigger is very, very good, because you can be using 2 pistols. You can quick trigger that and increase the burst to long burst, or if you're using pistols that have a long burst somehow, to a heavy burst, right? And then you get to the bonus from kill shot is just for is basically just lets you re-roll, so it doesn't interact like double tap does, and you don't have to worry about the whether the bonus is stack or not. It just lets you re-roll a bad damage dice. And the thing is, because you are upping your rapid fire, you probably are going to get a good or outstanding hit. I have seen, without even these bonuses, because I think they had kill shot, that just didn't have Deadeye. But I have seen like ridiculous numbers from rerolls come up. Right. So this is kind of like the dream. It's like level 8 bullet time is very, very good, but I think 7 is the one where the real like action happens.
Mm-hmm.
We'll get into 8 in a second, but
Yes.
yeah.
One thing it does say for quick trigger that it can go up to long burst, so it
Oh,
wouldn't
okay,
go to the
it
heavy
can't go
burst.
to heavy.
But
Okay.
still, long burst is really good. Um, yes, with Deadeye, you're adding a bunch of things together, but what's nice is it's not a, oh, I don't like this damage, I'm going to re-roll and hope that the damage is better. The the kill shot and the Deadeye is you roll the damage twice and you take the better of the two.
Yeah.
So if you rolled the first time and it was good, then you roll the second time and it's bad, you still get the good. Or if you get a good and then you get a great, you pick the great. So that is just really nice. You're not
Mhm.
possibly going worse. You're at least equal, for the second roll. And then now we'll go to the last one for Path of the Gun is Bullet Time. You spend 3 shock to gain a flurry. The hero may only attack with fire combat or unarmed combat during the flurry turn, and this ability may only be activated once per round. So your thoughts on Bullet Time?
So I mean, it is really good, right?
Yeah.
Because anything that we've just said that you could do, you could just do it
Do it
again.
again, right?
But it does cost 3 shock,
Mm-hmm.
and you're already spending shock, so you can be very able to almost knock yourself out in one round by doing this.
Right.
So you have to be very careful, have someone with soothe on hand or something, right? It's so it is kind of dangerous, but it can totally clean something up. So that's why I think Deadeye is only 1 shock, so it's easy to use it with a bunch of things,
Mm-hmm.
but 3 is a lot. And I don't know if that can be used only once per round is really needed, because generally speaking you can only get 1
Flurry.
flurry anyways. You can only get a flurry from 1 source.
Mm-hmm.
um
I
yeah,
think
very good capstone, just expensive. You got to know how to use it.
yes. This is one also where I know a lot of people don't like those second wins, but if you have a character
Yeah.
that uses shock, having, doing all, starting off without any shock, doing all your stuff, getting your shock up to up to that limit, then spending or using your second win card to heal that shock, and then spend the 3 shock to do another big round
Yeah, it
is,
was noticeable, the cachet gain of second win after the Pan-Pacifica book came out.
yes,
Like,
yes.
before it was always, this is garbage, get rid of
Is
it, and then it was
trade
like,
it,
no, no,
get rid
no,
of,
no,
yes.
trick, I'll take it, I'll take it.
Yes, exactly. The time before it was only when you'd have a lot of people doing like all out attacks because of
Mhm.
relentless and other perks that helped with that. But yes, second
There's
wind.
another card, I can't remember the name offhand right now, where it's like you can either get a card or a possibility or heal shock.
Yes.
Everyone gets to do it. And I remember there would be times I had my electric samurai. I'm like, no, I'm taking the shock, and people are like looking at me like I'm crazy. But it's like, no, I need it.
Yeah, and there's been times where we've talked about too, is if you know how to kind of farm possibilities, you might have 7, 8 possibilities, and
Anyway,
you're
yeah.
you're almost unconscious because you have a bunch of shock. I know at least once when I used the Inspire to get the shock instead of the
That's
possibility. Um, so that is the path of the gun, all around a very solid path in my opinion.
very good one.
So we will move on to the path of the hero, which I believe is kind of based on Jackie Chan. We said that the path of the gun was kind of the John Wick one, so this would be the Jackie Chan one. Your prerequisites are at least 1 add in maneuver, 1 add in streetwise, and 1 add in unarmed combat. So you will have to have more skills, but as you said, they're each just either a starting add or 1 XP.
Yeah.
So it's not that expensive. And um, the path skill is streetwise. So that is the skill that will increase your techniques. So number 1 is parkour. When making a test involving running, jumping, or climbing, The hero may spend 1 shock to gain a bonus to those tests equal to his maneuver adds. So, what are your thoughts on parkour?
It's important, as anyone who's read Harry Dresden novels knows, anytime you use parkour, you must yell parkour
Parkour.
when you do it. But this is actually pretty good. It's good for chases. Jumping, I find, doesn't come up that often, but it can. Maneuver is usually one of the interaction attacks that I see more combative characters always take, because you're going to up your dex anyways to be able to hit things. So adding adds in maneuver is kind of a no-brainer. And if you start with 3 adds in maneuver, it's kind of like, okay, it's just 3 extra, to another skill. I guess there's not really a skill per se that you're rolling for these kind of things, but if you need to make a strength test or a dexterity test to run or climb something, this basically gives you a skill where there was no skill before. So it can be very good. It only costs 1 shock. It is kind of niche, though. It's very dependent on what's going on, unless you just want to start jumping off of things a lot.
Right.
Yeah.
I think it's a nice different perk that can really help. And again, it's cheap. One shock isn't too bad at all.
Mhm.
So let's move to number 2, the tools at hand. Spend 1 shock to make a trick attack favored, or 3 shock to gain a +4 attack bonus. So, what are your thoughts on the tools at hand?
Um, Trick favored pretty good. Now the thing is, as I mentioned, they're probably going more maneuver, but there are times that you can't use maneuver, like in chases. And but there are times you can't use trick, like if it's mindless or what have you. But being favored is all right, and if it matters, then 1 shock is no biggie. Now the other one, 3 shock for +4 attack bonus. +4 attack bonus is crazy.
Yes. That's shooting
So
the broadside of a barn right there.
yeah, that's basically treating whatever it is as if it was large almost. But again, this is probably something I was doing wrong originally, because I would probably have been letting it stack with things. But like if you had relentless or not, if like it would, I don't know, it wouldn't stack with an all-out attack, I don't think, right? Because those would both be a bonus.
Right, to attack.
However, it would still be, it's basically, if I want to do a called shot to do vital damage, this cancels it out. So I could just spend 3 shock to do +4 damage, is how you can also look at that, right? Assuming you hit, of course. But yeah, so it's pretty good. It's kind of like a secret weapon that you hang on to. You don't use it all the time, because 3 shock is nothing to sneeze at. But if you want to get, like, once the main villain spends all their possibilities and you know they're not going to soak anymore, now it's time for wham to nail them with the big hit.
Yeah, and other than the shocks expenditure, there's no downside. So like
Yeah.
the all-out attack gives you a +4, but then you become very, very vulnerable or vulnerable.
Yeah, very vulnerable.
So this one, and you're spending shock for that too. So this one,
Hmm.
you're just spending the shock. You get your +4. You aren't very vulnerable. So if you wanted to move out of combat, you could,
Yeah.
and use your parkour to jump or climb away from
Exactly.
things. So yeah, I think it's a pretty decent one. It's also interesting that the 2 uses are very different. So it has 2 utilities that can be used in one technique. So number 3 is weapons everywhere. Spend 1 shock to use improvised weapons, as with the improvised weapon perk. And if the hero has improvised weapon, so that perk, attacks with an improvised weapon are favored. So if we look at the improvised weapon perk, so we'll go back.
I've had players
Improvise.
make characters who just take improvised weapons in the
Mm-hmm.
first place, and it's been good.
Yes. So what an improvised weapon is, you have to have at least one add in melee weapon, which isn't very difficult at all to get. And then you just grab something that's laying around, frying pan, rock, step ladder, whatever. You use melee weapons to attack or missile weapons if thrown. And then the weapon does like strength plus 2 damage. It gives some for a small weapon. A one-handed weapon does strength plus 3, and something big. So if you are swinging around that ladder, you're going to get a strength plus 4. But that one can't be thrown, and it's staggering as well. So with this technique, weapons everywhere, then you spend 1 shock. If you don't have improvised weapons, then you get to use the improvised weapon perk. If you do, then all your attacks using that perk are favored. So, what are your thoughts on weapons everywhere?
Favorite on an attack is pretty good. So yeah, this I think this is a really good one. Again, 1 shock is kind of if you have the perk, you're basically just paying 1 shock for favored.
Right.
And favored on attacks, like favored on other skills, is fairly common, but favored on attacks isn't not really.
Right.
So this can be very good. Even if you don't have the perk, it can still be handy, because I had a test game I was running with. There was an aspirant who had the improvised weapons perk, and he would just like rip trees out of the ground and hit people with those as a large weapon, right? So there's almost always stuff around that you can use, and it's also one of those things where if you have brass knuckles or something like that, which it would be a small item, you can use it as an improvised weapon to do more damage than it normally would. So there's like cute little things you can do about that. Some questions that have come up: can I throw a grenade as an improvised weapon? And so it hits the guy, and then the next round explodes. Things like that. So you get, this is probably the most characterful part of this path, to be honest. It really fits the Jackie Chan energy.
Yes, yes. And I think this is great because you can also have the character who just, okay, to get into this place, you have to give us your weapons or you have to check in your weapons. Okay, whatever.
Yeah.
Or the classic bar fight, that's in every RPG, including Torg Eternity. Sure, I'm ready. Just grab a chair, grab a table. ready to fight, and favored if you have the perk, which, as you said, and completely true, there's lots of other skills that you can get equipment or perks to give you favored, but for combat it's very rare. And
Favored's a weird one because it either is like complete clutch and saves you, or seems useless.
Yes.
It's like
very swingy. um, so we'll move on to technique number 4, my father taught me. And this is select a path with unarmed combat or melee weapons as its path skills. This is the hero's minor path. Choose 1 technique from that path with a rank 3 or lower. So, what are your thoughts on my father taught me?
on one hand, I always kind of thought this was a kind of a cop out of like, I don't need to think of another path skill. Let them take something, but it does let the player kind of pick and choose what they want to do for their character. So that's good. But I mean, it can be almost anything, so it's really hard to say. There's a few, like it can't be from the Path of Palin or Path of the Gun, because it's the path skill, not a prerequisite that you need. And it can't be from Path of Shadow, I believe. Right. And yeah, I think it's just those ones. Or Unification. Yeah. So it still gives most of the other options out there. So there's a lot you can do.
I also like that it can just you can choose a technique, so you don't have to go through the whole thing. It's just a boom. I want to do this path, and then I can get um, one technique from that path with a rank 3 or lower, just automatically. And I guess it's an instead of 4. But it's a lot like all the ones that we talked about last time, or we talked about 2, but like the 6 and 7 were both the same. So this
Mhm.
is like at least I get to pick type going on. So let's move on to 5, street learning. Choose one technique from the hero's minor path of rank 4 or lower. So it just kind of goes back as a look at that minor technique and choose one of those. So what would your thoughts on street
Yeah,
learning be?
it's
About the
just
same?
the same again. This is the part where I was like, okay, guys. Like, but I mean, that does make you have to choose more though. Like you can't take one from one path and another from another. You have to choose one path to be your minor
Mm-hmm.
path. So it does give you kind of a focus and it gives your character somewhere to go instead of just taking the best perks.
Right.
It gives you a bit more character to it.
Number 6, the unchosen one. Despite his heroism, the martial artist always ends up hurt. Once per act, before being attacked by a reality rated opponent, choose to accept the hit and take 1, 2, or 3 wounds, as well as any additional effects the hit would apply, and gain 1 possibility for each wound taken. These wounds may not be prevented or healed for the remainder of the act. So, what are your thoughts on the Unchosen one?
It's a weird one. Now, it is worth noting that if you think you're going to get hit for a hell of a lot of damage, you could say, I will take 1 wound
Yeah.
and just take one and not potentially the 3 to 5 you might have taken if you're getting hit by like a giant dinosaur or something like that. But it's a pretty niche situation. It's only once per act though. And you do get the possibilities right away.
Mm-hmm.
So, but those wounds you are stuck with can't heal them for the act. And with the negatives that gives you, that could be a little bit rough. So I think it's really going to depend on like what kind of character you have. I think, like I said, the best case scenario is to lessen what you think is going to happen. If you're out of possibilities and
And
you
you don't have
can't
a
soak
soak. Yep.
anymore, you could just say, I'm just taking one. And then now you have a possibility for next turn as well. Or you could gamble and take more. It's up to you. But also, you have to watch out for things like venom or
Mm-hmm.
fire. That might also mess you up because it says it gets the extra effects. You could get staggered or what have you too. But yeah, it's anything that's once per act has to be really, really good. And I'm not 100% if it is or not. And I could see where this becomes like a super clutch thing, but also I don't know how much it will come up because it's before being attacked. If it
Mm-hmm.
was like after seeing how much damage, then okay, once per act, that's fine, but it's a bit of a gamble.
Right. This would be one that you saw your friend get taken out with one hit by the big bad,
Yeah,
or something like that. Thematically it works. This is the guy gets the martial artist gets
yeah,
hit like with a punch that killed the 5 previous opponents to the big bad at the end, and he's able to come back and use, say, those possibilities to improve his attack to win, to save the day. I definitely see this as kind of a soak substitute, a way if
mhm,
you don't have a lot of possibilities to do that. If you get any of the perks that give you more wounds, then it's more beneficial because you have more wiggle room, instead of just teetering at 3 wounds, but 3 possibilities. Um, so it's 6 in 8. There's 8 techniques. It's number 6. I I think it's good. I don't think it's great, but I can
yeah.
definitely see the thematics of it. So let's move on to 7, Hero of the People. And this is after hitting with a melee attack, the hero may spend 3 shock to grant a bonus to damage equal to half his streetwise adds rounded down. If he is in the presence of neutral or friendly non-combatants, the bonus is equal to the streetwise adds. So, what are your thoughts on Hero of the People?
If you've been adding to your streetwise, it's really good because anything adding to damage is at a premium in this game. And streetwise is one of the skills you do need at least one add-in to
It's
take this
it's the path
path.
skill, so
Oh, sorry, it is the path skill.
so
Sorry,
they're
yeah.
at
So
plus
you have at
7.
least 7.
Yeah.
Yeah, so then that's very good. If you can add plus 7 to your damage because there's people watching, that's insane amounts of damage. Yeah, in fact, yeah, I forgot that Streetwise was the path skill. That just takes it up to like crazy levels. And 3 shock, yeah, it's worth 3 shock
Mhm.
because it's after you hit. If it was
Right.
3 shock before you attacked, it might be a bit questionable, but after you see that you've actually hit, doing an extra, and it's not even like add a bonus dice, so there's no wiggle room. It's just those adds, at
Right.
least 7 extra, or maybe 3, depending if you're by yourself. But it says friendly, non-combatants, yeah. So,
Yes.
but if you're in the Nile Empire, that's going to be happening all
Oh
the
yeah,
time.
this would be great in the Nile Empire.
Yeah,
Yeah, I think this is really great. As you said, a plus 7 to damage is just crazy.
yeah.
Definitely worth the 3 shock. Even a plus 3, guaranteed plus 3 isn't anything to, turn your nose up at. So I think it is also, or it is a very solid perk, especially if you start adding this to like your
Eighth of a
weapons,
perk, yeah.
your weapons everywhere, you know, and then
Yeah,
this,
because it says a melee attack, so that means either unarmed combat or melee weapons.
yes.
Yeah.
So now we will go to signature move number 8. Is when this rank is gained, choose a technique from a hero's minor path of rank 5 or lower. So, kind of along with my father taught me in street learning. Additionally, create a combo involving the 3 minor paths techniques once per act. When attacking a single reality rated foe, spend 1 shock to perform the combo without any additional shock costs. So, if you choose a path that you could add all 3 of those techniques together, make a combo off of it, you only have to spend 1 shock for it. So, what are your thoughts on signature move?
It's basically I mean, it seems good. I've always been kind of iffy on how combos work, to be honest. But getting another minor path seems a bit weird to be the capstone for it, but I'm not really sure what else you would do after that hero of
Hero
the
of the
people.
people.
Yeah. Now this says it's when attacking a single reality rated foe, but so we have talked in some of the other paths. There's a lot of really expensive
Mm-hmm.
stuff. So if you choose and you take 3 powers that all cost a lot, you once per act get to do it for just 1 shock, and that can be crazy. So unlike uh the what was the other one that we were talking about before? But I mean, unlike others, it's like it's definitely worth being once per act,
Mm-hmm.
right? Like so, um, Unchosen One is kind of like I don't know about this once per act thing, but signature move definitely, assuming you've chosen stuff that all works well
Right.
together, could unleash a ridiculous amount of stuff, especially if it's like Path of the Foot and Fist. Um, a lot of bonuses going together.
Right. So this one, definitely, if you are looking at Path of the Hero, look at all the other paths that you're able to make your minor path.
Yeah.
Figure out which ones you could add together spend one shock and be really happy with what you're
Yeah,
doing.
I
So
don't roll a one.
yeah, this is one that I would be so disappointed if I wasn't like reading what they did, and then I got to the signature move and was like, oh, okay, that's not going to help me at all. So this would be the one where planning and foresight have a lot to improve this signature move with. But again, doing 3 techniques worth of stuff at one shock is pretty significant. So I think
Mhm.
it's pretty good. And as you said, it's a once per act. So I think that is a good one. Uh, that will wrap up today's episode. So next episode we'll get back into Unhallowed Data Act 3, and then we'll come back to the paths for a little break on that. So you can again email us at torg@dcd@gmail.com. You can send us questions. We'll answer to the best of our ability. You can send comments, and we will comment back. Having said that, until next time, we hope you have fun in your own Cosmverse. Bye.